Welcome viewers. If you're looking at this, you're probably wanting a little bit of information about a portable cement mixer. So I thought I'd throw this together real quick, just give a real quick overview because the directions are horrible. It takes more than that 30 minutes or whatever the description says to put it together. So here's a few tips. There's the specs of it. This is the Northern Tool number 58271, 4.25 cubic foot, and I believe regular price is $379.99, but I just found it on sale for $299, so it's decent price and just barely over the really cheap like Harbor Freight ones. Just has a couple of better features, like the frame is actually powder coated, it's black and gray, motor's a little more covered and a little cleaner looking. Actually has a handle to drag it around, which is a little bit better. I believe the tires are slightly larger, but otherwise it's real close to the same. It is larger though. I believe the larger Harbor Freight is a 3 or 3 1/4, so this is supposed to be about a cubic foot larger. So that means more capacity, faster. Anyway, let's move on. This is basically what it looks like. And I will briefly run through the manual real quick. Let me get that. Here's the screw packages and numbers. Real basic idea of where it goes. Some technical specs. I'm going to just briefly go through this. Just pause the video if you need something in particular. Maintenance info. That's good to know. These pictures are bad. $1-800 number for service and parts. So, most of it is pretty straightforward. You'll start with the bottom section here, put those bolts in, fairly straightforward. I think they are about the longest bolts, maybe a 70mm, something like that. Those I could not get a nut or a washer on there with the nut, just a little too short for the bolts, so and there is one inside there going the other direction. And put the wheels on. One washer on the inside, one on the outside. I think I'm going to get another couple of washers and fill that gap because it's still a little wobbly. So I'm going to set up the next part and show you. Okay, so if you've seen any of the how to fix the Harbor Freight type, you'll know that there's a couple of parts that generally tend to essentially fall apart. One is this you just take the bolt out right there, and the whole drum pretty much comes off. It's easier to do it before you put it all together. And basically just put some Loctite on there. I also greased, that's just a whole tube in there. There's a bunch of shavings, there's no grease, no nothing. There's now grease on there, you can see. So I just lubed it all up real good because that is the part that rotates. The other problem spot that tends to leave people high and dry is that sprocket in there. On the inside, again with the drum out of the way, you can get at it. This one has a Phillips screw, which is horrible. It's a flathead screw. Basically, you just take that screw out of there, put some Loctite, and put it back in, and that will keep, theoretically, it'll keep the screw from backing its way out, falling in the dirt. When you don't realize it, suddenly it's spinning, and you know, if there's a key in there, the key will fall out, and you'll be stuck. Probably in the middle of your project. So, put some Loctite in that screw, you can just see it right there. And that bolt. If you need to replace that screw, check the threads, and it's an M6 by 1.0, and it's a flathead screw, so it should be about 16 millimeter from the flat head of it to the other end of it, or the threads are about 12 millimeter long. So if you wanted to put a different type of screw, I would use a hex bolt because that screw is a pain. I actually had to use a impact screwdriver to get it out of there. It was really stuck. Bad idea, but it is what it is, so hopefully I shouldn't have to worry about it anymore. But M6 by 1.0 and about 12 millimeters of thread. I don't have the key size. I believe it's in the part list. Okay, then the next step, once you get the drum all put back together, is basically just drop it in the uprights there, put the bolts in. It's a good idea to leave all these bolts kind of loose till you get it all put together. And it'll be just the lower half of the drum. Then, I forgot exactly which order, but basically you put the top half of the drum on, align the yellow, because you need that hole and that hole for the blades in there. They have to line up. There's a sticker on them. It tells you which direction they go. If you don't get it lined up, the bolts don't line up, both holes don't line up. And I'm not saying I did that. I read it on the internet. Really I did. So just make sure you line up the bolt holes. Just trust me. Then there's a, you can't really see it, but there's a gasket in there. You can just kind of see it. It's kind of a pain. I just did one at a time, and just do one screw at a time, work along to the next one. Just work your way around, get all of them started, and then go on the inside, push it out so you make sure it's all lined up. Then the worst part, most confusing part, is this stupid handle. The directions are horrible, the pictures are virtually non-existent, but basically that round disc just gets bolted on there. And the magic is, that's the spring. goes inside of here. So first hold it upside down and drop the solid washer disc thing in there first, then put the spring in. And so when you tighten the screw down, it pushes on that washer thing, the disc, which is on top of the spring, and then that will compress the spring, and that's how you get your locking. And then, like I said, just tighten that down a ways, just basically till it feels pretty good. Handle's pretty obvious. Then the motor, I'd also recommend putting Loctite on these two bolts and on those two, because you really can't tighten them down real solid, so they're going to be slightly loose, so a little Loctite will help keep them from coming off. This cover here just has 6 of these bolts, 10mm, and this whole cover comes off. You really shouldn't need to, other than to line the shaft up and get the flat side in there. I put some grease on there, and this is this quality is not ideal, but what to do? I'll see if I can show you the problem. Okay, so you can see the distance from there to the edge of the teeth. It's not consistent, so it gets noisy, like right there. See how it's way out? And so it makes a bit of racket. See, look at that, it moves probably, what is that, 3/8 of an inch? It's clearly not round, but what do you do? If you want to pay $5,000, you probably get better quality. Anyway, I think that'll pretty much do it. Like I said, it's just a quick overview, show you a few things, how things go together, and make it a lot easier. And most confusing was that part. See you guys later.